So I published The Failure of Surrealism 10 days ago, and it did really good, and it's still doing pretty good. We're at 120K views to talk about the failure of surrealism. And go watch that video, but if you haven't, and go watch it after either the stream or the segment. But I'll give you a little summary. Basically, I'm saying that the surrealists kind of failed in their revolutionary goals, which was very often leftist, because of, fascism happened. And surrealism and, as a very, very popular movement, was unable to stop fascism in any way. Now, I talk about the values of surrealism being communism, being leftism, anti-capitalism, though not all surrealists were leftists, but, most surrealists were leftists. Most artists in that time were leftists, as I believe they still are as I believe they are today. But I also said that freedom was something that they were defending or big fans of. And a lot of commenters, and the Canvas, my other channel, this one, has a lot of people who are not necessarily smart. They might like art, they might like looking at art, but they don't know much about politics. And they know a lot, even less about communism. They know less about communism than they do about politics, which says a lot about a lot of the commenters on that channel. So, a lot of people really believe that communism and liberty or freedom are opposites. And I want to do a little rant to show that it's actually not the case. Not only are they not opposites, but they're closely linked. Now, how do I want to go about this? How would you convince someone that communism actually equals freedom? How we're going to start is by guessing why they believe that communism doesn't equal freedom. Yeah, well, Ryan B. Stifler, why do they think they're opposites in the first place? So let's look into that. We can only guess. But very often people believe that when you talk about communism or when you advocate for communism, you're advocating for Stalinism. And it's very convenient to equate communism with Stalinism because Stalinism is fucking horrible. So it's very convenient for people who don't want capitalism to fall to equate communism with Stalinism. We've talked about it a little bit in Animal Farm, right? When you use the opposition and you characterize them in only one way, and it's a monstrous way, you can justify your own monstrosities. We saw it in Animal Farm when Napoleon, who's supposed to be Stalin, keeps using the farmer as, an alternative that's scary. So the farmer is an alternative that's scary, so it excuses Napoleon's own abuses against the animals on the farm. Well, I think that happens as well today. You say that the only alternative to capitalism is despotism. It's Stalinism. And that way you can excuse a lot of the system's failings by saying that there is no alternative, as Margaret Thatcher would say, our feminist icon. So, no, communism is not Stalinism. Surrealists did not advocate for Stalinism. Communists, except for a fringe minority of them, do not advocate for Stalinism. And personally, I would advocate that. I would say that, Stalinists aren't communists, but maybe that's for another video. So that association makes it so that people really misunderstand communism. And, as a famous communist or Marxist said, communism is when government does stuff. So a lot of, especially Americans, associate communism to more government intervention, more government regulation, more governments just ruling the world, I guess. The Pyro Anarchist sent me a link that's exactly what I'm trying to say. This is the famous communist I was talking about.
Socialism is when the government does stuff. And it's more socialism the more stuff it does. And if it does a real lot of stuff, it's communism.
Okay, but you get it. This is communism to a lot of people. So it's easy in that context to associate communism with authoritarianism or with less freedom, with less liberty. But I'm here to say that it would be wrong to believe so. And I don't blame people for believing that. The reason why I don't blame people for believing that is because it's what's been pushed, especially on older generations. It's the narrative that's been pushed. Animal Farm has been used to push that narrative, even though Animal Farm is a leftist book. I've made that clear in the video I made on the book. But Animal Farm is used as a way to show, hey, revolutions don't work. The only thing that works is capitalism. So, suck it up and accept capitalism. But communism, in its goals, is freedom before everything. Freedom is the goal of communism. A lot of people will say the actual goal of communism is equality, right? But I'm here to say that it's not. I really do believe that freedom is the main goal. Because what is communism fighting against? It is fighting in part against inequality, right? And it does believe that equality is helpful and it's a good thing. But the reason we want equality is because equality gives freedom. Because the roots of unfreedom, let's say, the roots of it is authority. The roots of it is hierarchy. And when you don't have equality, that means you will have people above you. You will have people with more power than you. You will have people who will use that very power to consolidate and concentrate more power towards themselves and towards, concentrating even more power. So they'll use their power to concentrate more power, which is a vicious cycle that will, make it so that eventually they will be your rulers, your kings, your boss. This is why equality leans towards freedom. So, but what does communism first and foremost wants to fight against? It wants to fight against that kind of hierarchy. If we can put it in simple terms, fighting against the monarchy, for democratic rule of society, which I don't believe we do actually live in democracy, but that's for another video. You would see that as trying to reach for freedom, right? Less concentrated power that influences my way of living. But what about in the workplace? What about economically? Communists will say, economically, you have to find a job to survive. And the only people who can provide you a job are people with more power than you. And in order for them to give you a job, and the very definition of what a job is obeying their commands to do what they want you to do. And that to me is quite the opposite of freedom. You don't see it perhaps as something that is unfreedom. You don't see it as something that's coercive because you feel like it's normal. It's just normal to have to obey someone for the rest of your life because they've worked to have that concentrated power. They've worked to have that position. And you know what? Having that position does entail a lot of responsibility. Sure, whatever. Being a fucking king entail a lot of responsibilities as well. Freedom from what? Communists want you to be free from the people that you have to sell your labor to. That means bosses. That means they want to free you from actually having to find a job just in order to survive. Does that mean that they want us to stop working? Or that communists want people to stop working? No. But it's just that they want you to stop working for the benefit or the profit of someone else. And working for the profit or the benefit of someone else is quite the opposite of freedom. I'll read you a couple of examples of comments that I got. Communists being for freedom of expression is the funniest joke I have heard in a while. LMAO. Bro really said not only because they were communists, but because they defended freedom. Seeking freedom through communism? Yeah, history has shown how well that worked out. Well, Marx has transformed the world, but for the worse. I don't know if that counts. Communists who wholeheartedly defended freedom? I doubt it. Communists hating on fascists is ironic. Both are heinous. Fascists and communists are not that far from each other according to horseshoe theory. All right, those are the comments. It's kind of funny. It's a handful, of course, and it's not necessarily people who were privileged enough to be able to know how to read theory, actually read about topics that they comment on. So you can't really be mad at them, but you can be mad at the general yeah. I think that was it for my I don't even know what segment this was. Oh yeah, how communism equals freedom. I guess.